So my children, it's been a brutal relationship, battling back and forth because
is it like, is it even getting any better with like the relationship with them, or
you know, it came to a point where I finally realized I'm the one pushing them because I have the same kind of social stigmas that they should be responding to me, that people were telling me that I should be as a father and as a parent. I've been called the deadbeat dad since for years, a couple of decades now, not just by my children, but by society standards. I was a burned out, bombed out loser as a dad. And so luckily for my former spouse, she met the right man. And when they got married, he took on the challenge of these two teenagers that were they were in high school, where bullying was the way to get through school every day. You had to fight your way through school. And if you didn't make it in school, you had to fight your way on the way home because somebody was waiting for you. And they came through that. And he took responsibility. He told them, he said, you know what? In order to have the mother, he has to have the whole package. So he went all in. Years later, just to save because we're crunched for time, he has earned the respect and the love of my two daughters that grew up with him in their house. And I'm Wayne, and he is dad. And that started some years ago. They couldn't call me dad because they were pretty much so ashamed of me. But not only that, guys, I was victimizing my children with emotional tactics. Yeah. When I felt hurt, I reached back and I hurt them. It was kind of like extreme narcissism. And I'm not joking, and I'm not using that as a cliche. Yeah. I don't have enough time to like dwell on it. But if you can think of a narcissist that has perfected emotional attacks, covert attacks, I was doing that to my own children. I actually sent them a card one time when I was homeless, living out in the woods, and I was just about ready to commit suicide. I almost did it, but I went to Barnes and Noble bookstore, and I found these little cards, and on the front of the cards, it was all pastel colors with glitter, and it said, wherever you go, whatever you do. And when you open the card, it said, good luck. And I signed it Wayne, and I sent it to both of them. I sent that in the mail, man. That's where I was mentally and emotionally. I was so ruined. And so I went back to my campsite, and I had a rope actually up in the tree, and I almost did it, but I decided not to because I thought my children eventually are going to become adults, and they're just going to kind of understand me better. And if I work on myself now, starting now, when they become adults and they start having children of their own, they're going to understand more, and we're going to connect at that time. So that was the thing. Now to fast forward, okay, we've tried. And because of my own turbulent journey in recovery of emotional health, drugs had very little to do with it. Smoking pot every day kept me kind of monotone in my bipolar problems. Without that drug, or without the pills, without something to limit my outrage, I was more of a dangerous person because I had no concept of consequences. I would just yell out things and just throw things and bust things and break things. I was so violent. Well, my children have seen that through the years, or at least heard about it on the phone, or, whatever. Yeah. So I call it false starts. And fathers, please hear me. When you're trying to reach your children, like every year Father's Day comes around and we get into a panic, right? It's like, oh man, I gotta get them to call me. So about a week before Father's Day, we start pushing the buttons and texting and sending them instant messages on Facebook and happy face dad. I want to hear from you this year. I'll buy you some candy. Well, they tried several times to give me another chance, and we would start into another chance number 5, chance number 10. And eventually, a couple weeks or a month into it, they would say something to me, or they would unleash, rightfully because they still had unresolved pain. And I would do the same damn thing that I did years ago. I went covert narcissist on them, and I would say something back to them. Like I knew they were about to hang up the phone, so I would just yell at them and then hang up the phone first, And I'm like, Wayne, why did you do that? And so that right
Yeah.
there is a typical borderline personality trait. And it's also a very strong bipolar trait.
Yeah.
So I would get defensive and hurt them first. I wanted to hurt them first and then to walk away and say, yeah, you deserve that. Well, what it's caused us now, they're 30 years old. Each of my children have 2 grandchildren or 6 grandchildren in the family. I don't have any wallet pictures of my grandbabies. I haven't done any FaceTime, face chat. I haven't done any Zoom meetings. I haven't done even a telephone call. They're kind of guarding them from me, which I respectfully
Yeah.
give them their space. And with all love and with all respect, I've come so full into my acceptance of their dad, Daniel. Daniel has become the grandpa. And you heard me talking the other day that 65% divorce rate in this country. 65% divorce rate. That means 65 out of every 100 marriages that get started, whatever period of years, let's say 5 years, we end up separated. And so then we now have 65% of the dads living separate from their families. And whether they're doing well or whether they're bombed out as a homeless guy, they're labeled immediately by social standards, the loser, the one that failed in the family. They're fatherless, children now. And now they start telling the children, you've got like a 13% chance to succeed in your life because you're a fatherless child. Well, Daniel stepped up. And I'm asking fathers that are hearing this, and I'm asking people that have severe trauma, kind of emotional pain because they're just not around their children and their children will not call. It's time for you to give the stepdad the respect that he's earned. I couldn't be there for them. He did. I couldn't send them child support. And even when I could, I didn't because I was upset with the mom or, whatever. So I blew it in so many ways. This guy stepped up, and I have no choice because now when I talk to the homeless people, and I do kind of public speaking whenever I can, and I try to go to the homeless missions, and I try to kind of be the guy speaking because I used to be one of the homeless people listening to someone coming back and talk to us that was formerly homeless. And I want to tell them, like, you have to get over it. You can't stay locked down because of your emotional pains. Your children will start responding more to you when they start seeing that you're actually happy to be a person and to come out of, these emotional pains. But it's a long journey that we have to internalize and do it on our own sometimes.
Yeah.
But, my children have kind of got even with me a few times. I don't know how much you want to hear. I don't know how much you think your listeners can actually handle, but
we might have to do a part 2 for like just children kind of talk. I know that it was like such heavy hitting yesterday. We talked a little bit about it, but just 100% we're gonna get you back and we're gonna do a part 2 about just all the in-depth stuff.
Hey, man.
But since I have you here, I do want to I think everyone has been waiting until this moment. And we can either, whatever you want, we can either do a cliffhanger and be like, well, we're not gonna say the marriage story until part 2, or we can just say the marriage story right now. I think we should. I think we should give them the marriage story.
I would rather share you this lady's my superhero. In my life, we all need someone that's like that hero that comes in and actually makes the difference in your life.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about Spider-Man and all that. I'm talking about real people that when they show up, you connect with them and you just know you have to do whatever it takes to kind of satisfy their request.
Yeah.
If I help a homeless person, we have to first set up some boundaries and things I will not tolerate from them. I tell them, I'm not going to take any hustlers. If you lie to me, if you hustle me, we're done. I could be helping anyone. Well, she could have been dating anyone and she could have ended up with anyone, but she found me. But she's had similar problems kind of with her teenage son through the years that she encountered with me, which complicated it for her, which makes it so much more impacting. You know, social media, the thing about teenagers on social media is the blocking feature, right? And the delete button. My children have deleted me from their Facebook page, and 6 months go by and I start sending them friend requests, and sometimes they take me back. But you know what? The most emotionally damaging and punishing thing that children do to us is they ghost us. They drop off, they block you, they delete you, and then they refuse to answer any form of communication. That's called ghosting, right?
Yep.
And so when that's happened to me, it's the most paralyzing, internalizing, painful thing in the world, because there is no way to get closure. You can tell everybody, you can tell Jesus, I forgive them, but they didn't hear it and they don't want to. So I was going through that when I met my wife, Bernie. She didn't know that, because when on the weekends I put on my poker face, you know what I mean? And I was really good at that. Really good at that. I'm a swinger, I can get this girl.
Yeah.
Dude, after about 5 weekends, she kicked me out of her house. And when that happened, I realized, really, I don't know why, but for the first time, I kind of saw myself without the fog in the mirror. I saw myself in the mirror face to face, and I saw the blood vessels in my eyes. And I was so upset that I couldn't just be a happy enough person that this lady wanted to keep dating me. I mean, it takes a person that your spouse has to want to be around you. Your girlfriend has to like being around you, and I wasn't there. She couldn't stand to be in the room with me. The more that I learned, her teenage son at the time, he was 13, he was violently angry and very deeply depressed and so isolated and such a loner. He wouldn't talk to her. He wouldn't tell her what he was feeling. He was cussing her out, and he was cussing everybody out. I mean, there was no exemptions. Well, she had that going on, but when I would show up for the weekend, he would put on his best performance, you know what I mean? Just to be so that I could be with his mom. Well, then eventually he and I started the clash. And if you can imagine two bipolar people, one's a teenager and one's a man, and we're both battling for space and we're both battling for mommy's attention. I didn't see all this until later.
Yeah.
But to get back to it, I don't know what it was that she saw in me, except one thing. I was genuine in my respect for her. And I was so sincere in the little things, the little subtle things that make relationships start happening. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And usually it's the little things that we do that piss them off. And it's the little things over a period of time that really run somebody off. But over a period of time, we've been married 10 years. So it's still to this day, it's the little things. We still have tickle fights, man. She shows up and without knowing it, I've slipped off and I've brought in a bouquet of flowers and they're on the table when she gets home. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Those things is what's kept us together. But we were both working kind of menial jobs. I was a maintenance technician for apartments by trade. And in 2011, we started dating. And my mother actually made me get on one knee. And I thought my mother was trying to make me propose. And when we showed up to my mother's house, this was sprung on us. But my mom had this rocking chair set up. I've got the pictures, dude. I can send it to you. She's got this rocking chair sitting on this white rug, and there's these flowers in the round. And I'm like, what is this? It looks like some kind of shrine. She said, Bernie, you need to sit in that chair. And Wayne, you need to get on your knee and you need to promise her that you're exclusive dating, if that'll tell you about me at that time. I said, okay, I'll do this. And so I got on one knee, and when I send you the picture, man, you should see Bernie's face. She's sitting there with her fist clenched, and she's looking at me sideways with one eye open, like, what are you doing right now? I am not marrying you. But I said, exclusive dating. I take this very seriously, and I'm going to do everything in my power to become the man that you want me to be. But hear me. I didn't just offer to change myself to accommodate her. I knew what she wanted was somebody that's genuine. And
Yeah.
I knew that what she wanted was somebody who was self-confident without her approval, and just self-confident and assured with respect. That's what she wanted. So over the next few months, I started really hammering down, and I said, you know what? I've been smoking for 30 years. I've been smoking cigarettes for 30 years, and I can barely breathe. I mean, I'm hawking up stuff and it's hurting my lungs. I threw the pack in the dumpster. Within like very soon after that one knee thing, I threw the pack in the dumpster, and I've done it before. This time I never went back. I haven't had a puff. I haven't had any vapes. I didn't chew gum. Same thing with the pot, dude. I thought I was gonna be buried with, you know, my bag of weed and a carton of cigarettes and you know, a 5-pound can of coffee. I thought I would never part with my Mary Jane.
Yeah.
And I realized if I succeed in becoming this respectable person and win her by being genuine, not the narcissist, not covert narcissist that can play it out. And I know you know what I mean. And I know most of your listeners has heard 10,000 conversations about the narcissist.
Yeah.
The narcissist game is very real, and the narcissist can role play with people and manipulate their feelings to where they think it's real, and then boom, drop it on them. Well, I decided I'm not ever gonna lie to her on purpose. So what I did first was I started telling her so much brutal stuff about me. I was trying to make her quit and leave, but she, for some reason, wouldn't. She was like, you know what? You're the one that has to work on that. I got work to do. I got a teenager. So you figure it out. And she would leave the room. And I'm like, really? So anyway, dude, we started actually connecting with each other, and it took a church. We both started going to a church so that we would have neutral ground, a mutual place where we could go and release our burdens. I'm not recommending church. I'm just saying we had to go somewhere. And starting counseling, the brutal fact about it is it takes 2 to 3 weeks to get an appointment. And it takes 2 to 3 weeks in between appointments. And it takes several weeks of appointments for you to each get to know each other before real psychological counseling can actually begin. We needed something right now. Kind of like we need Jesus right now. Yeah, we need right now. And I think a lot of us are there, you know what I mean? So like I said, I'm not a church guy now. I've got my own meditation things that I'm experimenting with, but I came fully present for her to be fully present with me. So because we started going to this church, they said, hey, you guys are living together. And they didn't go the sin thing, but we were living together. So step up the game. That was their thing. They said, you know what, dude, you've been in there for a year. You've been with her for a year. She needs to know you're going to step up your game. We were told, you don't have to get married this Sunday, but you need to put a date on it.
Yeah.
And I said, I can do that. So I talked to her first. We both went and got some counseling through the minister, and we both agreed, okay, we're going to get married and we're going to put a date on it, and we're going to do this right.
Yeah.
And so we did. And when we got married, it was such a simple thing. I mean, the night before we were in Walmart trying to find clothes that we were going to wear for the next day.
Yeah.
She got like a $28 dress, man. And it was kind of a hippie tie-dye looking thing, but it was cool. Dude, since then, we just walked away from the way we used to be in the past. We walked away from all doubt. We walked away from, the intimidation, like, is this right? Is this real? We just both totally assumed it's real, and we totally assumed we're going to make it. And so through the years we did. And she was working as a bakery. She was an employee at Kroger, and she worked in the bakery. She had to be there at 4:00 in the morning, and there was a salary cap at like $12 an hour. I was a maintenance tech for apartments. My apartment was included in my salary. So I got $12 an hour plus like a $700 apartment. That's a sweet gig. But $12 an hour is the cap.
Yeah.
Okay, so she had a friend, a lady friend through the years, that kept in touch once in a while saying, Bernie, you got to come out here and be a truck driver. There's money out here. And she's talking dump truck. This lady was a dump truck driver. So she kind of had an intimidating posture. When this lady would step out of her dump truck, it was kind of like she looked as rough as some of the rough guys out there. You know what I mean? She was just leather skin. I think she smoked and just hardcore, and she was like, Bernie, there's money out here. There's money out here. So Bernie came home one day, to my surprise, She was frustrated with her job. I was frustrated with mine. And it wasn't that job, it was every job. I was frustrated because I couldn't make enough money.
Yeah.
She said, this is a true story. We're going to have to get her on here and listen to her cute self tell it. But I came home one day to an ultimatum, and she said, you know what? I love you, and that'll never change. But I can't do this anymore. I thought we were over or something.
Yeah.
She said, I've been looking into truck driving school, semi truck driving school, and I got enrolled and I got financing from the bank. So starting in like 2 weeks, I'm going to start going to school and I'm going to be a truck driver. You can do a maintenance thing if you want to. And I'm standing there with my mouth open, guys, like, okay, I see these big trucks on the road, but I'm like scared to death. Like, me drive a truck? Are you kidding me? I thought she was going to chicken out, but really, I'm not surprised she didn't. I got to know her a little better. And the one, I didn't mean to yell, but the one thing that you don't do with my wife is tell her something that she shouldn't do or can't do.
She's going to do it either way, right?
To prove you, but she was like 13 years old, and her brother had a motorcycle, and it was like a Honda, whatever, 250 or whatever at that time. Heavy bike. He laid it down on the ground because the kickstand wasn't working, whatever. He laid it down on the ground. And she was like, I want to learn to ride. And he goes, whatever. He was standing there hanging out with one of his buddies. He was like older than her. And he was like, you know what? The day you can pick that bike up is the day I'm going to teach you. She straddled the bike, walked over there, and just, and she picked it up. And she looked at him. She's like, do you have time right now? I'm serious. Like, he tells that all the time. He's like, I ain't never told my sister what she can't do no more because it put him on the spot. But man, this story with her, it's not just a love at first sight thing. We have worked through this as complicated as it gets, with dealing with serious emotional, mental disorders, which I have had in the past. And I can't say I don't have them anymore. What I can say is I've learned skills to manage myself. And a lot of it comes from the carrot on the stick, the goal, the dream. But I mean, she has had to be in the middle between me and her son all these years. And there was never an issue. Like, if I ever gave her the ultimatum, like, you know what, it's me or him, who do you think would be going home to his mommy in Hope, Indiana?
Yeah.
But dude, her conviction about being successful in life, like, we're not going to live in a trailer court, and we're not going to drive a beater car. We don't need a Mercedes, but there's a certain level of safety and, success that she expects to achieve. And trying to do it on $12 an hour is going to take 40 years to do. She wanted to do it in 3 or 4. And, sitting here is really humbling, because I kind of have to admit the reason we're in this house is because she cleaned up both of our credits. I turned over the paychecks. I got a debit card, but she's actually got internet banking on her phone.
Yeah.
She transfers money between my account, her son, and she pays bills. And, about once a month, we kind of come together. She wants me to know, these are the bills I'm paying out because you're always crying I don't leave you enough money. She'll leave me like $100. And I'm like, really? I just got a $1,200 paycheck and I get $100. So when I get home, she shows me, here's the bill. We got a $400 Verizon bill, Wayne, because we got 3 devices and an iPad,
Yeah.
So she has my absolute respect. And my children, she's seen the battle that I've had with my children, not over the phone with them, but my private torment, guys. When I try my best, because we're told we must.
Yeah.
Right? It's not an option, especially as a parent. If you abandon giving up, trying to connect with your children, kind of the way it goes is you now have this thing around your neck and you're called a coward. You might as well just have this badge on your shirt that says, I'm a coward. I'm a deadbeat dad. I don't try anymore. But you know what? We might be out of time, right?
I mean, we're getting close, but yeah.
I want to leave you guys with this. I mean, if you need a cliffhanger, but I want you to know, with my hand over my heart right now, there comes a time when it's mentally healthy to put a stop to trying so hard that your trying is the thing doing the damage. Okay. There gets to a point, especially with our children, they need their space so that they can regroup, so that they can come to terms with what's happened to them in their experience without me trying to be the one pushing on them. Like, hey, man, you know what? I kept texting them this right here. Fathers, mothers, parents, people, you can send YouTube video links in a text message that can tell a whole story that you could never tell, because they will not hear it from you, but they might hear it from Wayne Dyer. They might hear it from, Anthony Robbins is kind of over the top with his enthusiasm. And sometimes I wish I could just hit a button to slow him down about half speed so I can actually hear. He's just so fast, man. But there's little nuggets in there. And what happens to me is right now, I'm going to tell you, I spend most time in my semi truck. I'm out 2 weeks and I'm home 3 days. I'm out 2 weeks and I'm home 3 days. So actually the 11 days that I'm out in my semi truck, it's my little moving university.
Yeah.
I spend more time listening to YouTube, inspirational stuff, man. I've got a daily routine now that I really can't get out of, because if I do, then I get out of kind of place with myself. But I'm listening to podcasts now, and I'm listening to YouTube videos. And dude, there's no end. There's no end. But what happens to me is I get all excited. I listen to something and I'm like, oh my God, I need to send this to my kids, and I'll send it. But listen, I've learned how to tone it down and pace myself. Yeah. I don't send them a YouTube video every 3 hours or every other day. I send it once a week. And if I don't hear anything from them, then I send a dummy text. I'm like, hey, how's it going with you lately? What that means is I didn't hear back. And I know if you read this text, you see the one I just sent last week. You know what I mean? That's my little gimmick. Guys, there's a time when you just have to give them their space. I've spent 10 years plus devotedly hyper-focused on correcting my behaviors. And that's a language I didn't used to use. That comes from counseling. That's what I've had to do. I've had to correct my damn behaviors. And my children are struggling with their own coping with how things are. And the thing that kind of blew them out of the water, I came to the point last Father's Day, because Father's Day every year is my panic button. We're supposed to hear from our kids, and we're supposed to send a card, get a card. But for like probably 6 or 8 years, I get a text message, and it's a single text message. And the only thing it says is like, Happy Father's Day, little smiley face, right? I'm supposed to be grateful that I at least got something, right? That's what we're told. Well, be thankful, they're not just ignoring you. But that's not enough. I didn't get enough. That's not feeding me. That's not helping me emotionally. And so I would start reaching back. And eventually I get to the point where they won't respond the way I think they should. And I start pushing hard. And I'm like, look, you need to call me. I really need to talk to you. Yeah. And when I get to that point, they have their way of letting me know. And it goes back to that social ghosting, the social media blocking and all of that. Dude, when it gets to that point, I've injured myself again, right? Yeah. I hope your listeners hear that. Like, the more I push, trying to cause them to respond to me, when they don't give me the response I'm fishing for, it wounds me all over again, right? So my relationship with my children right now is, we are people, we're adults. I'm not their dad. They don't have to be told they're my daughters. I don't have to insist anymore that, Daniel is their stepdad. Keep that straight. He's your stepdad. He's allowed to be there, but I'm your father. I went through that a few years ago, and the effect it had on them caused them to, resist me more. Yeah. And it wounded me more. So my relationship now with my children is this. I've agreed to give them however much space they need, and I'm doing it without a narcissistic edge in it. I have no motive. I have no alternative motive. Yeah. But I'm giving them this space so that I can claim mine. Okay. And a part of what I'm doing now by being a guest speaker on podcasts is I'm not trying to say, woe is me, look what happened to me, and I hope my kids hear this one day. look, guys, my kids are probably each one of them are going to have their own podcast show, and probably each one of them are going to be talking on people's podcasts, telling their stories. So I don't want to get into this battle with them of turning it like, well, did you hear Dad's podcast? You ought to make a podcast now and let him hear you. You know, that ain't what we're doing. I'm hoping we are becoming mature adults. But my angle is these grandchildren are coming up in the COVID era. Yeah. And they're seeing the world right now from children's eyes. And we're trying to tell them what COVID is. And they see the news, and especially last year, you remember that? The death toll. The death toll was every 15 minutes. It was updated every 15 minutes on NBC, the death toll. You imagine what the children are thinking and experiencing right now? And so the last thing I need to be doing as a parent is putting pressure on my children to like respond to me and feed my needs. You know what I mean? So I'm trying to say, without taking all the time here, there comes a time in our relationships with the ex or with the former employer or with your spouse when you're living separated or with your children. If they don't want to contact you, the absolute best thing to do is go off and find wellness for yourself. Go off and become centered. You know, when we work from our core beliefs and we become really hyper-focused on what our values are, we can establish kind of who we are as a person. And then we're able to allow people back into our circles, right? And we attract people that edify us based on our new changes. When your children start seeing you happy and it's genuine, you know, they can tell when you're faking it. They can tell when I'm on Facebook doing something, hoping they'll see it like a ha, 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 look at me now. Versus I don't include them. I don't send them links anymore. I don't send them invitations to see this thing I just put on Facebook. I'm letting them find things for me in their own time. I call it breadcrumbs. I'm leaving breadcrumbs so that they will find me in their time. And when they do, hopefully, you know, I mean, the greatest thing I hope I ever hear is like, you know what? You really are my dad and I love you. But Daniel is my father. I mean, get over it. But guys, on Father's Day, I posted online for the first time. I gave praise to this guy, their stepdad, and this kind of realization came over me in a spiritual way about Father's Day. What I'm promoting now is it pretty much belongs to the stepdad, doesn't it? Yeah. If 65% divorce rate means 65% of our homes are now remarried with someone that's not the actual father, but they had to step up and be the dad. When I offered that to my children, I think it took the pressure out. And now they can be free to be a family with him and them. And eventually they're going to start kind of looking back at me and say, man, he's really coming along. He's really changed his life, you know? Yeah. And when I start hearing those words, it's going to be almost as sweet. I'm going to get some brownie points here. It's going to be almost as sweet as when my wife said, yes, I do. I will love you and I'll be your wife and happily ever after. But dude, me and my wife, we still do the tickle fights. I still splash her with water when she's cooking and I'm washing my hand. I sneeze behind her and I splash water on her legs. Oh my God, it makes her so like, she's ready to hit me with whatever's in her hands, but she's so cute. Like her anger, the look on her face is kind of a cute, angry look. You know what I mean? Like, I always tell her too, I'm like, you know, you're intimidating as hell because I know you can probably punch me and hurt me, but you're just so cute right now. It was worth it. Like if you punch me, I'm all right. Go ahead, because it was worth it.
Yeah. I look for part two. If you know she's free, I would love to have her on here too, just for a little while. That'll be really, really cool. But as you know, you might have thought, we are coming to our final moments on this episode. Obviously, we do want a part two, so let's just keep in contact, Wayne. And you obviously have my number, and I have yours. And see when we can do this again. But for now, can you tell everyone, this lovely audience here, where they can find you, your Facebook and your Instagram, and how they can kind of get to know you?
Hey, well, maybe I can forward the link to you. It's easier just to forward the link to you and you put it in the show notes. But I'm working on my website, which isn't open yet, but it's called Reach Across the Miles. Actually, the website will be called acrossthemiles.org. And I think at the beginning of January-ish, I can have it open and have some content and stuff on there. But I have a Facebook page called Reaching Across the Miles, Wayne Shipman. So Reaching Across the Miles on Facebook, or Wayne Shipman on Facebook, maybe you can put a picture of me down there and people can see my goofy self.
Yeah, 100%.
But if I leave you with something to think about, I've come up with, the last thing I try to tell people is you have to become clear about your real values, not the things that society tells you. And you have to decide your personal standards, not what society tells you. Follow your heart and be that person no matter what. No matter what. If you have to leave family members and let them ghost you, use that as your healing time, man. But if you become clear about your real values and your personal standards, they will be attracted to you later on. Leave some breadcrumbs.
Absolutely love that.